to celebrate Islamic History Month. And if you look at the history of Muslims and Islamic contribution to science, mathematics, astronomy, medicine, architecture, we can have topic after topic after topic on an yearly basis so that it's beneficial for the younger generation to have a proper narrative as to the contributions that we as Muslims have done. I mean, in the past, if you look at some of the mathematical calculations or astronomy, it was Muslims who were doing it, but what the Western world was doing was hiring these Muslim people in France or Spain and making them write the books in their language, and then the credit goes to these European people. And while the background was Muslims who have contributed a lot towards the contribution of the advancements of sciences and everything else. So that is the intent of Islamic History Month. We should continue with this on a regular basis. In fact, a topic we wanted was the importance of Masjid al-Aqsa. Maybe in December we can do Masjid al-Aqsa. That is another important topic we shouldn't forget. We should be loud and clear, and we should know the narrative, proper narrative as to what is the importance of Masjid al-Aqsa, and that we will not shy away of supporting the brothers and sisters that are in the surrounding area of Masjid al-Aqsa, inshallah. With that brief introduction, I call upon the Sheikh. He will do Quran recitation.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم يعلموا أن الله هو يقبل التوبة عن عباده ويأخذ الصدقات وأن الله هو التواب الرحيم وقل اعملوا فسيرى الله عملكم ورسوله والمؤمنون وستردون إلى عالم الغيب والشهادة فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون وآخرون مرجون لأمر الله إما يعذبهم وإما يتوب عليهم والله عليم حكيم والذين اتخذوا مسجدا ضرارا وكفرا وتفريقا بين المؤمنين وإرصادا لمن حارب الله ورسوله من قبل وليحلفن إن أردنا إلا الحسنى والله يشهد إنهم لكاذبون لا تقم فيه أبدا لمسجد أسس على التقوى من أول يوم أحق أن تقوم فيه رجال يحبون أن يتطهروا والله يحب المطهرين صدق الله العظيم.
So I call upon Brother Bob Rahman, who is the chairperson for Bannaby branch, to say a few words, inshallah. I didn't introduce myself. Those who don't know me, my name is Muhammad Yassin. I've been involved before the land was purchased here. Prior to that, since 1988, I've been the auditor for BCMA for 25 years. And this masjid, I've raised millions of dollars for information purposes.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First and foremost, all praise and thanks goes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Peace and blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be upon our beloved Prophet Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, his companions, Khulafai Rashidin, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman and Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhum. Peace and blessings be upon those who follow their footsteps to the day of judgment. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness from our sins and our ill deeds, and we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us the opportunity to be gathered here. I wish we had a bigger crowd We anticipate a bigger crowd. Inshallah, people will come in. And we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us the opportunity to be here tonight. So, this program will be conducted by Brother Sharif Senbel. I've known him for a number of years when he started designing and building this masjid, worked alongside with him in the construction of this masjid and various aspects of this masjid. I'll read some of the awards and articles about Brother Sharif. Anyways, his contract with us had expired years ago. When we had a contract with him for the design and building this masjid, it had expired a long time ago. And he has given us his time, mostly no charge. We want him to charge us, but he's trying to get away from that, and he's done a lot of tweaking, designing, and everything. And we want to make sure that the colors and the design and all of that remains. Incoming board, please listen. Don't change anything without talking to this gentleman first, because it hurts. The design has to stay in its original state, inshallah. So some of the awards that he's got over the years, and this is a very long list. Now I'm going to take all the, take the large ones first. Aga Khan Architectural Award, al-Salaam Mosque Burnaby Award. We gave him an award for doing this design of this building. BC Masonry Award of Excellence. He got it twice, one in 2005, one in 2008. In 2005, we went downtown with Sharif and our structural engineer, and we received in front of a number of people the design for this masjid. Al-Salaam Mosque Burnaby, Aga Khan Architectural Award again, Al-Hidayah Mosque in Port Coquitlam, BC Masonry Award again in 2005, Interfaith Forum Faith and Form Merit Award, Royal City Builders Award in New Westminster, Barbara Darrell Apple Award, which was community service in 1998, and Strathcona Community Garden house in Vancouver. So the same with the awards that he got. And the press, he's continuously on radio, TV, etc. CBC Radio, Daybreak North, interview with Sharif Senbel about the Prince George Islamic Center. He did that Prince George Islamic Center. The Religions of Canadians textbook features the architecture work of Brother Sharif Senbel. Globe and Mail, he's in there quite often. Spiritual Isles in an Urban Sea. Faith and Form magazine, Al-Hidayah Masjid Forum and all of that. Some of the exhibitions and lectures that he's conducted, some of them, I'm not going to go through all of them. Diversity by Design exhibition, AIBC and AIA, Northwest and Pacific Region Conference, Canadian Islamic Religion, lecture on Making Vancouver Symposium, International Forum on Islamic Design, University of Sharjah, United Arab Emirates, Designing Muslim Spaces in Canada, which I guess he'll be talking about a little bit tonight, lecture on Horizon University, Ontario, and Summit Hall, Niagara Artists Center. He's got a long list of clients. City of Vancouver, University of British Columbia, Simon Fraser University, Science World, I did a lot of work over there, District of Maple Ridge, BC Building Corporation, BC Muslim Association, Markaz al-Islam in Fort McMurray, Muslim Association of Canada, and the list goes on and on and on, Iqra Islamic School, Strathcona Community, etc. So without any undue delay, I will now call upon Brother Sharif Senbel Jazakallah khair.
So two important points, and you will really appreciate this part. You see, when your mother is an architect, and your father is an architect, and your brother is an architect, and there is 4 in the family, what do the third or fourth one do? You become an architect. So we make dua for the mom that passed away about a month ago, and his brother was an architect, didn't like it, so he became an urban planner. He's a professor at UBC right now. So the other part, extremely important, and I made this announcement in the month of Ramadan, Saudi Arabia, what they have done, they have gone international. They're looking for Muslim architects from various parts of the world to come up and design a masjid in Saudi. So guess who was chosen in Canada? Brother Sharif. So I leave it there, Brother Sharif.
Can we have the Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thanks everyone for turning up. It was a beautiful day today. So every about 4 years, Brother Yassine asks me to come and do this talk. So some of you might have heard some of the stuff from today, but I'm sure there'll be some new material that some new projects that we've worked on, so hopefully it'll still be interesting to everyone. So I'll give you a little bit of background, inshallah, about myself and how I came to the blessings of actually being able to design so many masajid, alhamdulillah. So my education was in University of Oregon. So the Islamic architecture part was one lecture, one hour lecture in 5 years of education. So, I came out of there with, very little real understanding. It was more about sort of a historical understanding of where Islamic architecture is as part of sort of a global movement of architecture. So it wasn't very a deep understanding. But, as Brother Yassine said, my parents were both architects. So when I was a child, we traveled around and we went to Iran and Egypt and Turkey, and we saw all the beautiful masajid there and the beauty there, but without really a good understanding of what the ideas behind them, how they were different or similar. And later I continued that. I traveled to India, went to see Fatehpur Sikri and some of the great Mughal architecture in India, and went to Morocco and saw some of that, in Andalusia in Spain. So I had a good understanding. It wasn't that I had been to many of the great mosques and the masajid in the world, but I didn't really have a good understanding. And so when I first had the opportunity to start working, I won't go into the history of how I started getting some of these commissions, but when I started, I obviously needed to have a better understanding of what I'm going to do. I felt a huge responsibility. I didn't want to create mosques that look like this. This is what, I know there's a lot of good mosques in North America now, but at the time, in the late 90s, this is kind of the example. It's a collection of, symbols. Let's put a dome, let's put a minaret, let's stick some things together that look Islamic. I don't know where these columns are, these twirly columns, but this is the sort of thing that clients were wanting, some of them, and so I knew this isn't the type of Islamic architecture I wanted to create here. And I want to go back. How many people know what this is? Yeah, this is the first mosque in Canada, built that opened in 1938, Masjid al-Rashid in Edmonton. So this is as sort of simple and modest as it is, it's sort of, this is sort of more of what I sort of aspired to. It was built by Ukrainians, and they knew how to build minarets and domes because the Ottomans had been in Ukraine and had influenced their architecture. So there's a lot of cross-fertilization of ideas globally. So what I did was I sort of put together a set of principles that I wanted to work through, so that every design I could work through these set of principles of how to create. So I looked at the liturgical requirements of masajid around the world. The main thing is a clean prayer hall oriented towards Mecca. Simplicity over lavishness. Richness comes from the activities of the mosque, not from gilded gold and marble and that sort of stuff. So those were the liturgical requirements of mosques. It's fairly simple if you compare it to, a Catholic church is very complex, and they do have various services, different types of services and stuff, but the mosque is simple. It's a place for prayer, no furniture, just oriented towards Mecca and clean. In fact, what is any place that a Muslim stands and to pray is his masjid for that duration. And so that I really like this image here with just a carpet in the desert and a little direction of Qibla. But the functions of a mosque are very critical. There's a fluid spaces. You go from one space to the other, from the wudu to the prayer hall and back, taking off shoes. The idea of the gendered spaces in the masjid, the sister spaces and the men's spaces and how they interact was very important for me to resolve in a way that was equitable. And then also one of the big challenges of designing a mosque is accommodating large crowds of people moving in and out, or mostly out in a very short period of time. So people trickle in for Jummah, but there's a big crowd bursts open. So how to deal with that? Was very important for me to resolve well. And then technical norms. This is where really mosques from Islamic architecture is not this one homogeneous thing. If you go, this is Masjid in Timbuktu is going to be very different from a masjid in Malaysia, like this one in Malaysia, because it's a different climate, different building materials. So what you see is every place in the world developed its own Islamic architecture, unique to its people, unique to its culture, unique to the environment, the weather, the building materials, the crafts, the amazing tiles in Iran and Morocco. But then you go to Egypt and Turkey and it's stonework, and then you go to India and it's more stone and so there's various, and then there's the urban issues, how to integrate into existing neighborhoods. Big issue here in the West is parking. Parking's always an issue. No matter how much parking you give a mosque, it's never going to be enough. So those are the kinds of zoning and planning issues that we dealt with. And then, making sure to preserve, this was a very beautiful site. And we'll talk about this project in a minute here. But preserving ecologies, using daylighting. I always want to make sure any masjid I design at Jummah, nobody needs to turn on the lights. So even if it's a cloudy day, you should be able to have enough natural light in there to pray. So that was passive ventilation, durable building materials, and we'll come back to that. So I've sort of set all these various criteria that I work with for my different projects. So I'm going to run through a bunch of projects that I've done since 1998, And, while there's a lot of thought and many ideas in all of the projects, I'm just going to touch on a few ideas that were important in each project. So, and this is probably, I want to end on this one because symbolism and imagery and talking about, having a really authentic solution. Really, I felt that, like, there's all these different architectures around the world, and we are, as a community here, like first, second generation Muslim Canadians, we need to find a Canadian Islamic identity, like an architectural identity, just like the same as everywhere else. I mean, and you have to understand that our masajid here in North America are a lot closer to the model of the masajid during the time of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. At that time, the masajids were not just a place of worship. They were places for schools, there were places of refuge, there were places where judgments, community issues were resolved, and that's what the masajid are here. Unlike if you go to Muslim countries, the masjid is full at prayer time, empty every other time. That's it. It's a mono function. Here in the West, it's a lot closer to the model of the masajid in previous centuries, where it's more of a community center, where you see the weekend school happens here. The events like this. There's events like this would not happen, like say in Saudi Arabia. It would not happen in a mosque, right? So this is it was really important to understand that when we're looking at designing it. And then I'm not going to go into the whole issue of domes and arches and all that, which every time is like, where is the dome, brother? It's like, that's a whole different lecture for another time. All right, so we'll start. We're here, so we might as well start with Masjid al-Salaam. And I'm glad you brought up, who was it who talked about colors and changing colors and stuff? One thing you'll notice, I know you're telling the next board, but this board changed this color to a really ugly green. I don't know if,
Please, 5 people tell me that.
Okay, well, I'm telling you now. And you can get the color number from me for this color here. This is the original color. So it doesn't look like a bathroom. So anyways, but it was really a joy to work with the group, the team here. It was a consensus building group, and it took longer to get things done, but it was always built on consensus. And I've worked on many masajid, and I still go back to the team that worked on this, the brothers and sisters when we were doing this, and they were tremendous, really. So here, some of the ideas I want to bring here is our work with calligraphy, trying to work with the masonry calligraphy in the brickwork. And actually calligraphy in many ways. We have calligraphy on the granite panel here, and obviously the Allah here. Wanted to work with masonry, which is a very durable material. It's not stucco or something. This masjid, basically I designed it for a lifespan of 100 years. So I expect that, inshallah, in 100 years it'll still be there. This is really the inspiration for a lot of the detailing comes from Gastown, where my studio was at the time. So if you see some of these corbelling and stuff like that, if you go down to some of the brick buildings in Gastown on Water Street, you'll see very similar corbelling and stuff like that. We got a masonry award for this. This is the Allah in the masonry. But we also have Allah in the steel. This is a very sort of common guardrail, So always trying to see where, even with common materials, we can make them beautiful. These are, your basic picket railing. So, how we can articulate it and make it beautiful. And here, the idea of bringing in nature into the prayer space. So we're boring what is called the borrowed landscape. So we're bringing nature into the prayer hall, and also wanting, a lot of the minbar and the qiblas are closed off, and so I really wanted to express the idea that our energy is not. We're part of a global. We're all focused towards Mecca, and so it's not. Our energy doesn't stop at the qibla. It extends beyond thousands of miles to Mecca, and that's why, I left this blank with no pattern. It's the idea of like, that you would see the Kaaba in there. So, if you really squint hard, it's going to be there. If there wasn't any trees and the world was flat, the Kaaba would be there. And so there's this sort of this energy, this horizontal energy of all of us standing together, not just in this masjid, but throughout. But there's also, I wanted to balance this out with the vertical energy up towards the heavens and our connection to God. So we are a community, but we're also a community that's praying to God and under God and inspired by God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another idea is that, the men and the women pray in separate halls, but we are one jama'ah, and so the idea of the ceiling extending the same ceiling, sort of analogous to the sky above both spaces, so that we still feel as one jama'ah. So it's not a hierarchy of spaces, one space better than the other. So there are two spaces, one jama'ah under one roof. So that was some of the ideas in Masjid al-Salaam here. So Jami' Masjid Surrey was, there's three projects I worked on about the same time: Surrey, Burnaby, and Port Coquitlam. So this one is a bad slide, but so this is Jami' Masjid Surrey, and here it was a lot more traditional group, and so I really had to work with them so that the ornamentation is not sort of applied, but is part of the building itself. And so what I did here was, this was a tilt-up building. Tilt-up buildings are your basic kind of industrial building where they, pour the concrete panels on the ground and they lift them up into place. So I said, well, how can we take this really kind of utilitarian building system and economical, obviously, for this project, and sort of start to put a layer of, Islamic design. So this is, we ended up, laser cutting this rigid insulation, casting it into the concrete, and then peeling it away to create this continuous La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah around the prayer hall. And similarly, we did these, the cresting here. So it was a very kind of playing with basic materials that are common here. We're not importing things from, and how can we make them in a way that's more that is relatable and has a layer of Islamic identity. And it's still one of the few glass minarets in the world. I wanted to sort of experiment with like transparency and making something that's not so bulky. So in certain lights, the glass is quite nice. So Masjid al-Hidayah in Port Coquitlam, again similar time frame. So you'll see a lot of similar things related to sort of like the brick calligraphy. But one of the big ideas here was the idea that men and women, the entrances are absolutely equal. That, you know, they have, both have sort of equal right to the space. You know, like, you know, a lot of times, you know, my mom would complain about like the women's door being like the back door or like the side door or something, you know, and so I really wanted to express this idea that, they're equal, they both, there's space for both. Yes, we pray in separate parts of the mosque, but the claim to the mosque is equal for brothers and sisters. So this is the brothers' entrance and the sisters' entrance here. So that was one of the big ideas that was really supported by the client as well. Again, some brick calligraphy there and working. So here, this is again trying to bring Islamic identity to a kind of a local, with using local materials. So these are actually wood tiles. So I worked with with an artist to create these wood tiles that are around the doorway here. So they have a very kind of a geometric flavor that people can relate to, but is actually made from local materials. That's me in a very younger incarnation. And then playing, similar to here, but maybe a little bit more, because the neighborhood there across the street, like there's garages and stuff like that, so it wasn't the best neighborhood. So how to create, bring in light, but still keep kind of privacy and transparency. So we used a lot of this sandblasted glass. So a little bit later, this is a project in Prince George. This always gets a lot of attention somehow. So here I really wanted to work with the topography. It was a really beautiful site up against this embankment, really sort of a gentle sloping site, and I really wanted to sort of echo the topography in the massing of the mosque. So I and then also worked with a boat builder in Victoria to do this cupola on top of the minaret. So that was a really fun little project here, where it was a guy who makes fiberglass boats, and this came on a truck from Victoria and then got put on a crane, put it on top. It came in 4 quarters. So it was 4 identical quarters that got bolted together on site with the crescent in the middle. And then the other thing I started to think about here is how the masjid can also kind of reflect prayer, and how it can, in the form itself of the masjid, how we can start to show the act of prayer, of sujood and ruku'. And so the roof here, this curving roof, is really an idea of, like, the masjid itself is in a state of sujood towards Mecca. So you see the roof, and here, this is from the sisters' balcony, and the idea of, like, that the building itself is in a state of sujood. Yeah, and with this sort of tilting. Vernon Mosque, it's just a very. This is in a residential neighborhood, houses all around. So here we're sort of working with a much more, a smaller scale, smaller budget, smaller community, but still trying to create something that's, has a good identity for the community and is unique. And I know this, a lot of people won't see this, and it doesn't really matter. But even here, I was playing with calligraphy, and if you see, the alif, lam, and the He of Allah here in the roof line here. So kind of playing with those kind of ideas as well on a larger scale, calligraphy on a kind of a larger scale. And even though it might not, most people wouldn't see it, but it still sort of informs the design. And here, you know, this is, I didn't necessarily design this as a fish scale dome, but I worked, you know, the roofer came and said, you know, what do you think about this? And I always like to work with contractors and roofers and if they and craftspeople if they have ideas. Like the masonry guy who worked on this project on the Masjid al-Salaam was amazing, and they came, you know, they said, you know, maybe we can do it this way, and you know, I thought it was a good idea. So from the very small scale, Vernon Mosque, probably the smallest mosque I've worked on, to the biggest project I've worked on. This is in Fort McMurray, where everything's kind of like Alberta size. So this is, they've got 10 acres. They bought 10 acres. They had a great vision here of creating a mega center, mega Islamic center. So where they had a big gym, Islamic center, a K-12 school, daycare, a pool, mosque, and imam's residence. This is obviously the plan is to build it over like 20 years, maybe more. Now, for sure, more, because this was in the heyday of Fort McMurray when this started, and now, you know, with the oil prices and this and that, and so. But this is this in red here, the gym and Islamic Center. They built that now. So this is the start. This is phase one, and even phase one is not fully complete. You see the arches and these medallions are still not in, and this screen here that's going to tie everything together. The school. This is from the school. Tie it all together. But they're still, you know, they're slowly working at it, and they have a big vision, and you know, inshallah, they'll see it through. This is a project that I'm currently working on. This is in Ottawa, Canada, a suburb of Ottawa, and here, sort of an evolution of some of the ideas that maybe this even started in Surrey 20 years ago. So there in Surrey, it was tilt up. Here, it's prefab concrete. So I found that there was a prefab concrete plant that's like 15 minutes down the road. So I've been working with them to come up with an Islamic pattern that we can precast. So these would come precast onto in the plant, be trucked over here, and then put in place. And again, using local materials. This is all stone that's very common in Ottawa, in the Ottawa region and Ontario in general. We're still working on the minaret. It looked like this before, but it's changed. And this is sort of the entrance. Again, you'll see similar ideas. You know, this is maybe similar to what we have here in the mosque on a different scale here, and it with some big arches. And sometimes we get asked, people hear about me, and then they ask me to get involved in projects, but the project's kind of already started. This is one of these. This is in just outside of Chicago, where they had a gentleman, an architect who just, was just a local architect, not a Muslim, and he had, designed them something that they didn't really fit, what they were hoping to do, and so they came to me, and this is sort of something that I worked with them after the fact. In fact, I never saw the project until this summer, where we were driving across with my sons, and we dropped in and so I saw it. So this project was everything. It was pre-COVID, pre-Zoom, so everything was on the phone and on drawings and stuff like that. But it's they really wanted like a contemporary Islamic building, and so I worked with them to develop that, and did a little bit of work on the mihrab for them. So there's all these fun things with design and stuff, but one of the really fulfilling things for me in these projects is meeting new communities, new Muslim communities. You know, when I first moved to Vancouver, for example, I had no idea there was Muslims from Fiji. And it was like the dominant Muslims here were from Fiji. So, you know, I was like, wow, that's great. And now, you know, 20, 30 years later, you know, most of my Muslim friends here in BC are originally from Fiji. I still have to go to Fiji. I know you keep telling me. He's got a timeshare. You guys are all welcome. So, how many people have heard of the Cham people from Asia? Anybody? Cham? Yeah, someone's nodding. So, huh? Yeah, so the Cham people, I'd never heard. The Cham people are from Asia. They from Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam. They haven't had their own country for 500 years, but they're still maintaining their culture, their language, their cooking, and I was amazed when I looked up their history. And one of the biggest community outside of Asia is in Seattle. So I've been working with them on their community center there, and you know, and it's been so lovely to meet new Muslims that I didn't even know. You know, I know there's many Muslim communities throughout the world, but it's been working closely with them, understanding what their priorities are, understanding what's important for their community and what they want to, you know, like for example, these guys, cooking was really important. They had to have a big kitchen. One of the important things about their culture is maintaining their cuisine, and so, you know, eating and all of that was very important as part of this community center. These are early. And I thought I'd, no, I'm doing pretty good. So I thought I'd finish with the Islamic Center of South Calgary. This is emblematic of what's happening to a lot of projects, larger mosque and Islamic Center projects is, when this project was done, you know, land was cheaper, building was cheaper. It's much harder to get projects off the ground of this scale now because of the cost. And so this project has been, you know, it's had a building permit for maybe 4 years. And they've just haven't had the funds to get it going, unfortunately. So, but now it's finally getting going, and we've sent out bids, and it's going to break ground, inshallah. But mainly because the city told them if you don't start building, your building permit's going to expire, and you know, you'll have to apply for a new building permit. So they need a little bit of shove out of the door, but you know, they're getting going. This was a fun project, you know, where it was very similar to many of the masajid, where you have a prayer hall and you have a multi-purpose community hall like this one, where you can have multi-faith events, where you can have sporting events, where you can have community events, all kinds of stuff like that, and some classrooms for activity rooms. But this one, we created this courtyard more enclosed than this one because of the weather, obviously, in Alberta. And here, just showing sort of the circulation, the brother circulation, sister circulation, and then sort of the cross circulation into the multipurpose halls, the various entrances to for different activities. And this is how we're bringing in light in this courtyard here, and light into the, because our masajid here are always facing north, so it's the light, the sun is always coming from behind us, so it's always a challenge how we bring that. Here we've used skylights. Skylights don't work as well in snowy climates, so we use clear story windows to bring in natural light deep into the prayer hall. And then this is one of their, this should be a video that they did for their fundraising. And we'll end with this. Is there volume here? No volume. Oh, well, there's some good nasheed that goes with this. But this is another large project. So a lot of clients are using videos now as sort of promotional material. We used to make scale models, remember? We used to have a little model that sat in the lobby. But this is easier. They send it around. And they want to do a residential component as part of a seniors housing. So this was a seniors housing and commercial. But we're just trying to get it off the ground now. Just baby steps. This is Calgary, South Calgary. So I finished a little bit early. I kind of went through it quite quickly. Obviously, there's more we can talk about, or I can talk about. But if anybody has any questions, we'll probably have time for some questions, if there are any questions. Oh? Go ahead.
It's a two-part question. First of all, Mabruk, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's a wonderful project, obviously.
Thank you very much.
First question is what you did in Berlin. It was obviously in some kind of a single-family residential area.
Correct.
Presumably the zoning is what, an RM1 or RS or residential zoning. Was that site designated for faith-based use, or was it a rezoning that you had to go through?
For Vernon, I think for Vernon, the residential zoning allowed for.
Which seems very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a church down the street. There was a Catholic church down the street as well. Yeah, but it was all single-family residential, and I think it just allowed for certain types of public assembly uses. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
The first question. Secondly, to what extent, you've been working with
Yeah, when I was an intern, I worked with Farouk, yeah.
Done a lot of work throughout North America,
Yeah.
Houston and Chicago and whatever else, and also abroad in Dubai and Tajikistan, Koro, Dushanbe, and in Cairo and around Al-Azhar. And to what extent has his work and he's a little bit more senior, a little bit my senior for that matter.
Yeah.
And so he's had a fair, run at a lot of different projects. I just wondering to what extent he was able to, I'm not going to say influence, you're a bright man in your own right, but to what extent did it help working with him? Because primarily his work is more AKDM focused, and as we know, with the different tariqa from the al-Salaam. To what extent you have made adjustments, whatever it is you picked up from his company or from the AKDM projects that you've been working on?
Yeah, I mean, I was, as I said, I worked for him for about 2 years. I was an intern. I worked on 2 Jamakanas in Calgary and in Edmonton. But I haven't once I left, I was not familiar with his work at all. I never kind of like, so beyond the projects that I worked on in his office, I didn't keep up with whatever he was working on. So, I mean, obviously, like as an intern, you're influenced by, all of your, so some of, obviously some of the work that, he did probably rubbed off on me. I mean, if you look at Calgary or Edmonton, Jamakana, they're, maybe I was more involved in Calgary, and they had a lot of brick, so I was very comfortable working with brick. But in terms of the detailing, and obviously the program is completely different at Jamakana. The way the brothers and the sisters sit, and the ante room, and so. Yeah, no, I didn't. That. I mean, it's like we're trained to design so many different building types. It wasn't like, is this a mosque or is this a Jamakana? It's like, for me, it's a different, it's not even to say, it's a different project. It's a different building type. Let's go. Yeah. So I didn't really have to like, I got to forget about, that was, and those were, I mostly took those after. He'd already designed them and I finished them. I sort of did a construction administration and stuff like that. And
he's had a fair amount of influence from Al-Azhar and also from the mosque area around the Humayun tomb in Delhi.
Sure.
I'm sure there were sisters asking questions.
Yeah. Okay, you can go. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, thank you very much. Alhamdulillah.
Thank you. So it is definitely our honor to be here today and listen to you and see all your accomplishment and the beautiful spaces that you have designed. And certainly it shows the essence of your spirituality, like not just thinking about the small elements, but rather the elements which are even big in the whole structure of the mosque that nobody could really see unless they really understand you as an architect and your approach towards designing these spaces and keeping the essence of Islam and our heritage and culture and designing these transitional spaces. So this is incredible. Thank you very much for sharing your work with us.
Thank you.
The question that we both would like to ask you is about, mashallah, you have worked all these years, and definitely keeping our Muslim identity has always been a challenge for every age. So how it has been for you, that journey, in terms of, and especially like making it so prominent through your work, who we are, what you stand for. So what is your, something that you would like to share with us that helped you overcome that challenge, and something that today's generation can learn from you and how we can continue keeping up with that? It's like mostly like Canadian.
And you said you had 4 questions?
Okay, no, I said only one. Sorry if it's too
No, it's good. No, it's good. So, I mean, really, it was really having a core belief in myself, and, you know, you have to understand that I didn't grow up in North America, so I think that helps a little bit sometimes, and maybe not. But I was always in an English school from kindergarten, and so I feel like I straddle, you know, the West and the East, and some, you know, my son, for example, he's born here, doesn't speak as Arabic as well as I do, and I think he has different challenges than me. He'll have different challenges as a Muslim than I did, and I think the challenges were less before. You know, I think, you know, it was easier for me. And one of the things is, when I started, I was young. You know, when I started doing these projects, I was fairly young. And it took a lot more convincing to my clients and stuff. And, you know, and that's why some of these projects, I really admire the clients who put faith in me. Because later projects, I could always say, oh, well, look, I did it this way, and look how everybody loves it, and everybody thinks it's beautiful, so it was easier for me. Those first projects, this one, Al-Hidayah and Surrey, it was more of a challenge, and it was more of a challenge within my community than really outside. You know, most of the planning staff and the rezoning, it was always very supportive, and wow, we'd love to have more projects like this. But it was convincing my community that no, you don't need a dome, that a dome is not really an Islamic architectural element, that a minaret is more Islamic. So those, I found it more challenging, and the educational component of my job was, I never thought that would be part of my job, that I have to, you know, educate my clients so that they can be on board and so they can understand what I'm trying to convince them of. So that was really sort of a sideways answer.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Okay, ma'am. My apologies, it's 7:40.
I mean, you can ask me, anybody who's got some other questions can ask me after.
After, yeah.
Yeah,
Because
I'll be around.
7:45, we have the Isha time, we have to get ready.
Oh, but
So
yeah.
what we'll do is
I wa-
call upon Bob Rahman to make final comments and a vote of thanks. And for 7:45, we'll go perform wudu, and then if you have any other questions,
I'll be
meet
around.
him. He'll be around.
Yeah, I'm pretty approachable.
Well, just to wrap up things, a couple of comments, well, actually three. Brother Sharif, you've been working with the Fijian community for a long time. You're almost a Fijian.
Thanks, I feel like it.
And the Fijians are everywhere, just like the bad weather. So we're all over the place. Couple of things over here that stands out, this masjid and the architecture and all that. First is the minaret. We had it in the drawings to build the minaret, and we didn't have the money at that time. One of the directors stepped up and said, I'll pay for the minaret. You guys can pay me once we have the money to. And he forked out cash so that we can continue building the minaret. The minaret was built, and I want to thank Brother Daud Ali, may Allah grant him Jannat al-Firdaus, for working so hard for this masjid. He came up with a thing that Expo 86 had for brick sales. Sponsor a brick. So we asked people to sponsor $10 for a brick, and we raised enough money to pay the brother off that loaned us the money to build the minaret. That wasn't done, I don't know when it would have been done. Richmond Masjid, they have in the design a minaret, and it never got built, and I don't think it'll ever get built. So that's one thing. Secondly, there's a love-hate situation with our mihrab. When the mihrab, people started coming in, they're looking at the mihrab, oh no, you know, you can see people outside, people are walking, parking their cars and all of that. And it was a love-hate situation, and we persisted, no, this is not going to be just a standard block-off area. This is what it is, bringing the outside environment inside. So before we hired Qari Sahib, we had visiting imams, and they were young students from England that we used to bring in to do our Tarawih. And a couple of them were very distracted by the movement outside. People were standing there smoking, yada, yada, yada. And we put a curtain over there. We put the curtain for the first Tarawih. And after that, people said, no. This is not what it's all about. Get rid of it. We got rid of it. And this is where people have stopped talking about the mihrab now. They talk very positive about the Jazakallah Khair Sharif. And Sharif still provides the service. We have a retractable roof going over the courtyard. And I don't know what he was smoking when he chose all the colors, but on the tiles, but we are going to have a retractable roof, inshallah. Brother Ahmad has been designated to look after that. He met with the manufacturers in Turkey, and the design has been changed. Now you have the working drawings to do. We're going to go for a building permit, inshallah. We'll complete that. Money has been set aside. The board of directors have approved it. Money has been set aside in our capital budget for that project, inshallah. Jazakallah khair for your attention. Now I call upon Sister Khatun to say a vote of thanks, please. Sister Khatun Nisha has been involved with this masjid since inception, and she is on the board of directors for the women's branch. You can address them from there. Come on now. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. I would like to thank everyone for attending this from our running board and the new coming board. We welcome you all. Our sisters have been very involved with this masjid, and we preserve it as our home. We look after the masjid as our home. And mashallah, we appreciate everyone that volunteers and gives us a hand. And we'd like to thank Brother Sanabel for good work and precious work you are doing. Thank you very much, and I hope you'll have a good dinner tonight. Thank you.
Okay, brothers and sisters, so we can check for Salah, inshallah.
It's made up.
Everybody come back after.